All right, well, good day, General Kennedale. This is Jeff Nevarez with the Kennedale News, and we're here with a special coffee chat this year. Now, I don't know if everybody really understands, but the KISD Board of Trustees didn't have any contenders this year, so they're unencumbered. So any incumbent who reapplied will be your trustees for next year. But there is one thing that is going to be before you to vote coming next Monday, or by the time you see this will be today. And that's the bond election for approximately $106 million. So today I'm joined with some special guests. I have President of the Trustees, Darryl Owens. I have Superintendent Chad Gee. And I also have President of the Vote KISD 2023 PAC Group, Jim Glovier as well. How you doing, gentlemen?
Good. Thank you.
Doing good.
Good. I hear the rain starting behind us, so that's good. My lawn needs that. But we have an election coming up, and it's been a very quiet election, especially somebody like me who's been participating. And I'm happy that you guys have joined me so we can discuss this, because there's been a little bit of comments on the Kennedale News, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys had a good fair side to express why we need this bond. Let's start with Superintendent Chad Gee, because I know he's a busy man and he might need to sneak away here. So, Chad, why don't you tell us some of the factual stuff of why you feel that the KISD needs this $106 million bond?
Why it's say that again?
Why it's necessary?
Why the bond is necessary? Well, we brought to the Board of Trustees the idea of bond because we were utilizing our fund balance to address many of the issues with our facilities that we quite honestly weren't able to do so out of our maintenance and operations fund. And if you're not familiar, we have two separate parts of our budget base or our tax rate that we set, which is our M&O side and our INS side. And our M&O side is our maintenance and operations, and our INS is our bond debt side. When I came into the district, we had $39 million worth of bond debt. We are currently at $14 million of bond debt. So we have been very dutiful in bringing down the bond debt. But the reality is we cannot keep addressing the things out of our maintenance and operations side or our fund balance with depreciating our fund balance to a level that we can't sustain. And so that's where we're going to have to address some issues potentially through bond. So.
Okay, and I know that the KISD did like some sort of meetings before, which I joined you guys for that, where we got to walk the schools. And some of the things that I saw was basically almost every room was in disarray or very old, or you can see kind of where the internet, I'm sorry, my internet's going unstable, where the old buildings meet the new buildings. But the last time we did anything like this was 2004. Am I correct?
Our last bond issue was 2004, and that was $40 million back at that time. Nothing substantial has been done to buildings since that time. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, and what are some of the items that we'll just pick like one or two from each school that really are your high priority that need to be addressed?
Well, a big priority on 3 of our campuses, that's the junior high, the high school, and Patterson, are roofs. We were looking at having to replace roofs on 2 of them and refurbishing the roof on recoating the roof on Patterson, since it's a metal roof. And so that's at a cost of about $16.5 million. So that is a big issue. The other issue is we have 468 AC units, HVAC units throughout our district, varying in cost from $5,000 to approximately $30,000, depending on the size of the unit. They're all aging, and because of that, we're looking at a replacement cycle that we've been trying to implement and put in place, but we've been very reactionary because every summer we have so many units that go out. We focus on those units as opposed to being able to proactively start replacing the older units that are 20 years old. So,
okay, and
those are major issues across the board at each campus. The high school, we're looking at an addition of a CTE culinary arts area. We have students that are in I'll call it a situation where a kitchen where they cannot get certifications for what they're doing, and that's a big part of our CTE program. So having a better facility to facilitate getting our students what they need, also being able to facilitate handling more students in that program. Another thing would be the outdoor ed program, which would also be CTE and classroom space as well. The reality there is we have about 75 kids in our archery program, but we have interest up to about 140. We just cannot fit them right now. So, and then at junior high, we had to move the 6th grade into that campus. We've done so. We upped our capacity from 60% up to 91% on that campus, and looking at adding an additional wing that would update science labs and give us a lecture hall potentially, as well as some additional restrooms and other classrooms to facilitate growth there.
And the band hall.
I'm sorry?
And a band hall, correct?
And a band, extending the band hall.
Yeah, extending the band hall, yeah.
To accommodate this number of students that we have. Yes.
So,
I mean, there's two both projects. You're just asking, you asked what the main ones were. I'm just kind of going through each campus. At Patterson, we talked about the roof, but there's also the library. The size of the library for that campus is not at code, so we would need to potentially build an additional library, and we could turn the space that is the library now into additional classroom space. That is the proposal there. And then we have at Delaney. I'm not know if you're familiar with the where the playground's at, but it's kind of in a low area and it floods all the time and washes out. So, trying to relocate the playground into or re-turf the playground to where we don't have to issue with the washout all the time. That's another issue at Delaney. Space is an issue as far as storage across the district, and just being able to address some of those issues all across the district. I think I've touched on every campus now. So, all right.
So to cover one of those things that you were talking about, space, one of the things that we don't do is really buy in bulk so we can distribute, like, let's say, just toilet paper all over the campuses, because we really don't have a place to put it or receive it, correct?
Not on each campus. And so we don't have a central area location that we can house everything like a warehouse. So that is another issue, is turning the old gym, what was known as the cheer gym when I got here, but it's basically the old gym up here by central office, into a distribution area and a loading area to where we can disseminate products and materials out across our district and take, as you said, bulk items, as opposed to not being able to do so now.
Okay, and then one of the comments that we get a lot too is this going to go to a new school? And I've heard you speak about this before, but this will not go to a new school, but to better utilize the spacing and additions that we need for schools for future development, correct?
Yes, when we were looking at our distributions of students, and when we decided to turn Arthur through all of our community meetings and the discussions that we had there, and the work sessions to get through to where we were going, when we started looking at turning Arthur into the early childhood center and proportioning where our students were going, we also started looking at there are other substantial areas that we're going to have to address. And so as we did that, as we're looking at, preparing ourselves for the future and potential growth, how can we best do that? And that's where all these discussions came into play.
And I think anybody who's a parent in KISD can see when we go pick up our kids, where's the dilapidation, where's the rain dripping in and causing little stains on the roof. I think we can all see that, but I just want to go back to the junior high. It's one of our older buildings, used to be the high school way back in the day. With moving the 6th grade up, that has really just kind of filled up the school overnight, but we still have some capacity. But we're to secure the future growth, because we have 2 elementary schools that feed into the junior high now. We just need to not only expand the wing, which will give the science halls and math halls some role, a little bit more room, but just in general, more school space to better utilize the rooms that we have. Some of them were crunched down for the 6th graders to come up and things like that. Am I correct on that?
Well, one of the things that we also looked at when by doing the distribution center that we were talking about, we're looking at moving our entire IT department out of the building behind the junior high school up to that building, and having that space for them to where they can take their, shipments of computers and Chromebooks and everything else that they receive all the time, and have their area to process those before we ship those out to the campuses. So that was one of the considerations, was moving them out of that building and then recapturing that building as a junior high CTE space. And so that was a big consideration there. And that's going to add several classrooms right there as well. So,
and as an IT guy myself, I'm a huge supporter of that. I've seen the IT room up the high school, and it's shocking. It's as big as my office. Let's get them a bigger office for sure. All right, any final thoughts that you want to say about bond?
I just want to reiterate that, we have been very dutiful as a district in what we've been doing with the taxpayer money. We have lowered our tax rate through House Bill 3 and the compression that we have faced. We went from, I believe when I got here, it was $1.40 something, on the tax rate, and we are down to $1.22 on our overall tax rate. We've dropped from $1.17 to 94 cents on our M&O side. That's all through compression, and we're probably going to have to compress again this next year, just because that's the way it works. What I want everybody to understand is that we are not in control of the valuations of their property, and we don't control that. That's controlled by the Tarrant County Appraisal District. But the appraisals and their values are what, I think is the perception that they are, we're raising their taxes, but we're not raising taxes. We are lowering taxes. We are also paying off our bond debt very, very quickly. So, I believe that we have been good stewards of that. I also want to reiterate that this is not going to raise anyone over 65 who has filed for their exemption for their age. It's not going to raise their taxes. And, I think that's something that those are the facts that I think people need to understand. So.
Okay, and let's just speak on that real fast, because obviously, if you look at your tax bill, the biggest taxing entity is KISD, and rightly so. I have 4 kids, so the math is there for me as a taxpayer. But as my property increased, because mine's almost increased 100% in 3 years, almost about 89% increased since 3 years ago when we purchased it. What's that difference? Even though you've gone down the tax rate, are you guys getting that difference, or is that going into your coffers? Yeah, it's not. Where is it going?
To the state. Why do you think we had a surplus of $33 billion this year at the state level? Because it goes into their coffers, not us. Because every time the valuations go up, and you may pay more taxes, but the state's still paying us off of what, so if this other portion comes up over here, they lower their portion. So the amount that we get stays the same. We don't get any extra money off of it. And in fact, I was just reading an article the other day where some districts are subject to recapture. We're not there yet, but Midland ISD over the last I think 10 years has paid back almost $1 billion to the state in recapture funds. So where's the money go? It's going to the state.
All right. Well, we'll move on to Mr. Glovier, Jim Glovier, who's the president of the PAC group that's registered here for the pro vote yes for this bond election. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing real well, Jeff. I would like to take just a second to correct something there. I'm actually the treasurer of the group.
Okay, treasurer. I'm sorry.
The state of Texas doesn't require we have a president, but they do want someone to point fingers at if there's questions about money. So I am the treasurer, and that's I think our only official position that we have.
Well, I'm going to W president for the purposes of this discussion.
Guys, I'm
going to put treasurer over your face.
I've got another meeting I've got to get to, guys.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks for your time.
Hey, man. Thanks. Yeah.
See you, Chad.
See you.
All right, Jim. And so why don't you just kind of take off where Chad was, because he's bound by law to only be factual with it. But you're a citizen, you're a private citizen and a taxpayer here, and you're over 65 as well. So why don't you speak a little bit while you're pushing this out?
I'm sure most of your audience doesn't know me personally, but as of August this year, we'll have been in Kennedale for 35 years. Our kids, 2 of them went all the way through the KISD from K through 12, and then one of them went K through 6. And so we're fairly familiar with this the situation here. As far as, and I want to just reiterate what Chad said. One thing is, we haven't done a bond issue since 2004. That's 19 years. There's a lot of other districts out there, and they're doing bond elections every 3 to 5 years and coming back to their voters for more and more money.
Arlington.
I think, yeah. And some of them are the same size as our district or similar size. And I think that you can complain about anything, anywhere, anytime, I know. But for the most part, I think that the district has done a very responsible job and really exercised good stewardship in the spending of the money that they do have. But it's just like you own a home. I mean, infrastructure, it's aged. It's, your house, if you bought a new house in 2004, by now, you're probably looking at replacing a central air conditioning unit, and those are really expensive. And when you talk about having a few hundred of those things out there, that's a really large budget item. And roofs, the same sort of thing. Sooner or later, you've got to replace things. Your carpet wears out or what have you. You get leaks, that sort of thing. And this is one of those things, like there used to be an old oil change commercial where the mechanic says, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And he's referring to this excuse me, an automobile that needs a new engine instead of just a $40 oil change. He's going to need a $2,000 engine. And, as we keep putting off things like leaky roofs, I mean, if your house leaked and you started seeing, you wouldn't just get out a pan and say, I'll put this under the leak and collect the water and everything will be fine. That's just isn't the way things work. Leaky things tend to spread. Wood gets rotted. There's mold in the buildings. All these things start to add up, and we can, pay for it now or we can pay for it later, and it's not going to get any cheaper. So I was at a meeting about the issue back in late February, and that's when we formed our. Technically, it's a political action committee. I don't think of myself quite as a political action committee guy, but that is our official position in the state.
So you're obviously the voice for the yes of the citizens.
Yes, I would say that. Yeah, the whole everyone really involved is. I mean, I was putting out a lawn sign just yesterday.
I got mine. Thank you.
Yes, I did yours too.
I saw.
This was in the neighborhood across the street from the high school, and I pulled away from the curb, and like 3 houses down on the other side, there was a fellow out there pointing down, and so I pulled over. I said, "Are you looking for a sign?" He goes, "Yeah, man, I graduated in Kennedale, and I want, I'm all for this." So it's like,
Great.
Yeah, sure. So to me, it's everybody that's involved is for this, and like you said, if you've got kids in the school, you can see this.
Yes. And I think though there's like probably 1% of the people that comment when we post this or you post it, excuse me, on your Facebook page. Any naysayers are they're kind of minor issues. One of them was, well, I can't afford it. I'm over 65, which Chad addressed. And some of them are saying, this is a big ask, $106 million. But put it in perspective for some people. Arlington got $1 billion bond the last time. So did Fort Worth ISD. They got 1.2 billion, I think it was, with a B. And so 106 million in the whole scope of fixing five schools. Although Arthur's being worked on, we're going to take some of that money that we used to Arthur to throw it, and pay it off with the bond a little bit faster. So technically it'd be all 5 campuses. So it's really not much. But why is it separated as 5 or 6? Why can't we just do one article, vote yes, and let it go?
Back in the day, that is the way it was done. But now the state requires us to break it out as far as what programs and where the money goes, so that we don't just a district might just bundle everything together and say, hey, we want a nice big football stadium or whatever, and everything else comes along with it. You do have the right to turn down any one of those propositions. Our group is supporting passage of all 5 of the propositions. But basically the requirement to break it down into individual sections comes from the state.
Okay, let's bring Darryl into this conversation as well. Darryl, who's the board president for the trustees. It's broken down to 5. And so the main one is the maintenance packages for all of it. So I think it's like 89 million, or correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around there. And then each one's
right.
I'm sorry, which one?
I said you're about right. Yeah.
Okay, off the top of my head, that's what it is. And then each one after that's kind of just a few million there, a few million here for like the media center. So let's discuss some of the minor ones. Media center did get a facelift just a few years ago, but the sound equipment is going bad on it. And this is a public area that we use publicly and people rent often, correct?
Well, that's true. People do rent it, and I think it's probably most important that we remember that it's for the district itself and what goes on there. Performances go on there, and when you have a soundboard like we have that needs to be replaced, it's not going to cost you a dollar or two. It's a hefty little fee. Unfortunately, it's just what we have to pay to get the type of quality that we need in order for that pack to to provide the type of entertainment that that we need.
So this money and the overwhelming majority, yeah, it's maintenance and expansion, but truthfully though, it's also to bring us into the next decade of future education, right? Is that correct as well? Like IT infrastructure and make sure they get certifications, things like that.
Right. A lot of things are changing in education, and certifications are a real big part of it. Everyone is not going to go to college, but they all can be professionals in some area, some aspect. So, we need to make sure that we can provide the type of facilities that can get them out of high school with those certifications, so they can step out and be, productive in whatever field they're going to be in as soon as they leave. So we need to upgrade that, the different facilities and make sure we have what we need, whether it's IT or for the CPE program, in order for them to be successful. And if they're successful, then we've done a good job of making them successful, and that makes a district successful.
I think one of the best things about KISD is the high school's optional program, and I went to Arlington High, and it was really, really geared towards just going to college, right? That's what every program was for. Yeah, they had maybe a side program that you could go to the community college, which we do have as well, like shop, things like that. But this will allow to bring a lot of those optional programs to be inside the district, so where we can graduate kids and kind of push them, if they didn't want to go to college, to maybe go to a trade route, correct?
That's true. The pathway to success, 20 years ago looked a lot different than it does today. The options that are available today, were not stressed 20 years ago. So since that's changed, we have to change to make sure that we can provide them, the pathways that they need to be successful. You talked about IT. Well, that's a really big thing. But you don't need to go through college in order to get certifications, whether it's C+ or, or whatever it is. But they can step in, with those certifications and get a position with a company and be actively employed, so that they can be a contributor.
As an IT guy, I have my A+, my Net Plus. I was the first generation to do that 20 years ago. Ooh, that's that gray right there. And it's kind of actually pricey. I had to actually go to a specialty school to do a year of programming, of training, to even qualify to pass my test. So this will allow, like for example, for the IT, they'll learn here and we'll pay for it as a school district for them to certify in these. Correct?
Yeah, and if you can go get these certifications at the school without having to pay the fees that you'd have to pay once you graduate, and pay for them on your own, I think it's something everybody who wants to go into that field would want to go and take advantage of. So if we can offer it with the right facilities, then I think we need to do what we can in order to offer that, and I think that makes us responsible.
Let's go back to the money. $106 million. I mean, admittedly, that sounds a lot, but we did a shareholder meeting. All three of us were through that, most of all those meetings. And all the shareholders there basically said, we all unanimously agreed, 100, go for the big, go ask for the whole 106 million. So for people understand, we were offered 3 levels. 2 of them would not have increased taxes. The third one, the bigger amount, would have increased taxes. So we recommended that to the board. You had the board discussion shortly after that. How did the board feel about it? That recommendation and obviously asking for $106 million.
Well, it was not a decision that we came to lightly. We talked about that, and the bottom line was that we need to do what we feel is best for the district, and we didn't want to put a Band-Aid on an issue that would have to raise its head again in just a couple of years. We have an opportunity to do everything that we need to do. So let's go ahead and do it, by having those facilities in the proper working condition, and having our technology upgraded, and having the type of CT area, wells, everything else Chad just mentioned earlier, is what we know we need. So let's do that. We did it in a responsible way. We're not asking for money for a brand new stadium or something like that. This is just infrastructure things that are going to help this district, come into the next century.
So I think, and the KIC has a calculator to calculate what your tax increase would be according to the value of your house. And I got my TAD the other day, my blue piece of paper the other day, so I can go calculate this properly. Mine was roughly $18-20 a month, I think, in an increase. So but how does that work moving forward? If we say yes as citizens and we approve of up to $188 million, are you just gonna go to the bank and be like, give me $108 million today, or is there a different way to do this?
Well, when we take a look at that, we'll draw down what we need to do the projects that when they come up. So everything won't be hitting at once. There are different steps and phases that these things are going to be rolled out in, and whatever we need, that's what we'll go ahead and use. So no, it's not going to be done all at once. There's a calculator on the district website. You can go there under the bond for 2023, and you can plug in your numbers and see what the increase would be. So if anybody's interested, I can encourage you to go ahead and do that. We mentioned earlier that, we are one of only 2 districts in the North Texas area that has not gone to bond in the last 20 years. So we've been very responsible, and we've been very cautious, and we've been very restrained in using bonds, in order to do what we need to do for the district. Well, it's just time for us to do that now.
So does that mean that the next budget meeting that you guys have, which I think was coming up, right? You do it in late spring, is that correct?
It's coming up.
Yeah. So is that when you're going to increase to cover that, or will we see it kind of trickle and expand over the next couple of years?
Well, the budget, the M&O side, maintenance operations side, those are things that we'll take a look at, and we'll get a recommendation from the administration, and we'll take a look at that and see if we agree with it or not. But I don't think you'll be seeing anything big popping up anytime soon.
Okay, so I might not even see this increase next year or the year after. It just depends when you guys start pulling the money.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there is actually
that's my understanding. Yeah.
And so there is kind of like a red line to where we can borrow up to that red line without increasing our taxes. But once we hit that red line, which I think was 60 million or something like that from January, once we hit that, then we'll start looking at increasing the taxes.
Yeah, take a look at the ballot. You'll see that all 5 there is broken down, and you can see, the top numbers, what we're going to what we're going to be doing, and you can see some of those things aren't going to be done overnight. So, it will take a while for all that stuff to get put into action before that money be used.
Okay, and then in the end, what's you and the board's thoughts about the $106 million in the application where the administration wants to apply all these things?
Well, if we were not in favor of the $106 million bond, we would not have voted for it. And the board voted unanimously that it was something that we wanted to have on the bond election. So we are all firmly behind all of the initiatives that are on the being represented there. So what's our thoughts? We all think that it's necessary, it's required, and it's what's going to make Kennedale the best it's going to be for the upcoming near future.
And Jim, what's your thoughts? Same question.
About spending it, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, you okay with the 160? You're going to sleep well at night? If we vote yes on this is the question.
Well, it's probably worth mentioning that everyone on the board, by voting for it, is also voting for a tax increase of their own taxes. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think Darryl raised a good point. There's other levels that they could have done this, but then they'd be back in a year, 2, 3, hey, we need another bond issue. I think the way the previous bond was handled, the spending and the what it was spent upon was fine. I mean, we still, we took care of a lot of things, and now we are playing catch up in this one. But I do think that fiscal responsibility has been good, so I'm fine with 106. Yeah.
What do you think the reason would be for somebody to vote no? Why? So we can address that no.
Yeah.
On the spot question. I love those.
Well,
I can't think of a reason why you'd want to vote no, unless
kind of hard to say no to the school. It's for the
Yeah.
children, right? I mean, I think that's what everybody thinks internally. Like, well, of course I'm going to vote yes because it's for the children, and that's what I kind of want to get past people's kind of inner monologue with that. I mean, they didn't show up to the shareholders meeting and walk the grounds like we all did to see how bad it is.
I had a fellow, I was handing out information flyers, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6 weeks ago at the junior high's open house.
Mhm.
And almost everyone was very positive about it, but there was one fellow, and they're going to raise my taxes. And I felt like going, the fact that you're here tonight tells me you have a child or one or more kids in the school district, and this is going to benefit them. And to sit there and say, well, I don't want to spend, I mean, if we were talking about shipping money off to Washington DC, like we all just did on the 15th of April, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think it's been they're spending it responsibly. But here in the district, I mean, this is our kids, these are our schools, and this is our community. And that's, to me, is, you know, if you want to argue against those things, well, fine, you know, you go get a cabin in the woods and be a hermit or something, but you're living as part of Kennedale, and the schools are part of the community. It's that simple.
Well, let's talk. I mean, it's obviously a timing. People who watch the news, they're getting freaked out. They're seeing, you know, inflation up, interest rates are really high. They could see when they go to the grocery store. I mean, I'm at $1,200 a month right now for a family of 7 at the grocery store. It's a lot of money. And so I think that's where everybody's kind of seeing like, oh God, here's another thing to increase what's going on out here. So what would you say about the timing? I mean, is this a good time? I mean, should we do it now or wait 5 years when it's more expensive? Like, well, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, you know, if you take a look, just the way you pose that, Jeff, I think it's a good point. You know, if we don't do it now, we have to do it later, and it's going to be more expensive. You know, and if we don't pass a bond now, then we'll probably ask them for it again really, really soon. You know, we're going to do what we need to do. As Jim said, you know, we've been more than responsible. You take a look at what the district has done, how we've handled the finances, and we've been very, very responsible. And we know that this is the right time to do this, and that's why we have asked for it to be on the election at this particular time. So, right time, right place, right district, right level of government at your school district level.
And I would agree. I'll put it simply for people. I bought my house 3 years ago at 275. I could sell it at 450 right now. That's the difference between 3 years. Sometimes it's a huge difference in the cost just to even do a decking. Like I just did a pergola 3 years ago would have been about $5,000 cheaper. It's $5,000 more that I waited 3 years later. So I think that's a good point to show just how fast and quickly things are moving in our economy. And I understand everybody's fears too. As a business owner myself, I have the same fears as everybody does. And since I promote clients myself as well as businesses, I grow businesses, I see their fears too. And I see the results of people not purchasing as much as they did the previous year. But this is still a good year before things blow up. We'll be prepared moving forward. And I think the best conclusion of this, and I think you guys would agree, is that setting us up for the next 10, 15 years, just to kind of catch up with how education's changed since post 2020. Would you guys agree with that?
I think you can always make a case that there's never a good time to do this.
Yeah.
But it has to be done. I mean, to me, that's the difference between being a responsible adult and being childish about this. You know, I don't want to do this. Well, sorry, kid, you got to do it. And that's the way we need to address this. There's obvious needs for this money. It's like you said, you know, waiting 3 to 5 years and trying this again, you know, it's going to be more expensive, just like everything right now is more expensive than it was 2 years ago or whatever. And that's something no one in the district really has any control over. Materials and labor, everything that goes into doing an improvement or doing any kind of work is just keeps going up. So I know when you talk about is this the right time, I think that's there are political answers to this, but then there are also real world answers to this. And to me, the real world answer is we don't gain anything by putting this off.
Yeah, I could see that too. I could just see it getting way more expensive. I mean, you could see the 40 million is what we needed just 20 years ago. Now it's almost doubled. And it's probably almost the same amount of work or same amount of replacements, just maybe just a little bit more. And as somebody who's fiscally conservative, especially on a local level, my stance is as a citizen, as long as we are responsible with what we're doing, paying off our bills, and have a savings account, a fund balance is what we call it here. Then if we need this, then we need this, and we need to move forward. I think you guys would agree with that.
Agreed. And you know, we gave some numbers a little while ago, and I just wanted to kind of make sure that everybody has the right number. You know, for Prop A, that's 97,300,000. I'm sorry, 97,930. Prop B is 345,000. Prop 3, that's 3,150,000, and then Prop D is 330, and Prop E is 4,395,000. So total 106,105,000.
Okay. Any final thoughts? We'll start with you, Darryl. Anything you want to make sure that the citizens know?
I think there's three things that are very, very important that everybody ought to do. One is vote, two is vote, and three is also vote. Yes, to all propositions.
Jim?
Oh, it's hard to improve on that. Yeah, not only just vote, and vote. Talk to your friends, family, neighbors, and encourage them to come out. When we started the PAC, we found almost everyone I talked to, and other members found this too, is people would go, "There's an election coming up," and it's like, well, yeah, and so there hasn't been much publicity about this election. So early voting starts next Monday, the 24th, and it runs through till the following Monday, which is May 2nd. And then the actual final election day is May 6th.
Already?
Yeah, it's coming.
I know.
Monday, you can get out, starting Monday, you can get out there to, take 15 minutes, go by the community center and let's do this. But again, don't just say, well, I'll go vote, which is great, but, talk to friends and family, neighbors, and, just make sure they've got the word. We're getting our signs out now. We're doing some direct mailing here this week, again, just to increase awareness as much as anything. But yeah, that's about it.
Well, there you have it, Kennedy. That's all three of what you could be voting for this year. This is the last coffee chat we're doing in our series. I want to thank my guests for coming out. If you want more information, you can go to the KISD website. At the top, you'll see Bond 2023 up there. If you click on that, there's the calculator with some factual information as well. And if you have any questions or you want to sign, you can find us on find the PAC group. It's Vote Yes for KISD Bond 2023. I believe it's what it's called. You've been seeing it on Kennedy News feed as well. We've been sharing it. Just go ahead and like the page and reach out to the messenger, and somebody will answer your question or bring you a sign if we have one left over, if you want to give a donation as well. And as always, guys, if you have questions, just send us out to Kennedy News. We're happy to answer those questions or pass it along to somebody that can. But for right now, again, thanks to my guests and good luck in 2 weeks from now to everybody who's voting. And for now, this is Jeff Nevarez with the Kennedy News.